Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel again. My name is Young Bogarts. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little about quirts. I like making quirts, but I use quirts a lot. Um, as I mentioned before, I think in today's world and with the horsemanship that most of us try to obtain, brute force and ignorance is no longer a good thing. So, if we ask for the horse's face and he decides to root against our hands or whatever, we use our feet to get him off our hands. So, by the same token, I use my hand in some way to reinforce my leg cue. In other words, I press with my leg. If I don't get the desired response, I turn my toe out, press with my spur. If I still don't get the desired response, I don't want to take my leg off and harpoon him or do whatever. Um, I will use my hand with a quirt to get the desired response, to make that hip move, to make that shoulder move, or to make the barrel move, whatever I desire to obtain. So for me, quirts are very important tools. Now, there's a huge difference in quirts. For example, this is more of a southwestern style, and they are considerably longer than all the other styles. The shortest style that I know of is a chattel style, but I don't have one like that I can show you. Another style is a Texas style. And Billy Albin is the absolute master and authority in making these quirts in a Texas style. And then, of course, you got more the California style, which is more like this. Now, does a quirt have to be elaborate? No, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, my first quirt that I ever used in the early 80s was a 3-foot piece of garden hose where on one side, about 1 foot, I slit it in half, poked a hole on the other side, put like a baling twine or piece of rope as a wrist hanger, and it worked. It worked. Some of the nicest skirts today have nothing but a handle, a body, and a popper, and they work just fine. Now, to me, I find it real important to, if I want to reinforce my leg with my hand, I want to make sure that I can slap or whatever the horse where I want it to be. Even when I'm moving cattle and I want to create energy to get the cattle moving, and I use my quirt and I slap it on my leg or my shap or whatever, I want it to hit where I intended to hit. To me, that's very important, because if I do this and I smack my horse for no reason at all, that wouldn't be fair to my horse. So, the first thing you make when you make a quirt is the body, and there's several options. I know that, for example, this one and this one has, those long lunge whips, the very top end that's real flexible. I have used that and just twisted some leather or rawhide around it to get what I desired, and it works. Am I totally pleased with it? No. And then when you're a little on the cheap side, like people say I am, and you take the next part of that lunch whip, it's got a nice taper to it and all that, but it gets real stiff. Like here, I mean, it's more like a baton than a quirt. And I think this one is more of the middle section. It's got a little bit of a taper to it, but again, not really what I like best at this point in time, because my opinions evolve. The more I learn about stuff and the more I give other techniques and other tools a fair chance, and in my book, giving something a fair chance is use it a couple of times and then see if it works for me or if it doesn't work for me. So what I like the best is what I'm building nowadays. It's got some flexibility to it, yet it'll land exactly where I want it to land. How do I get that? Well, either with a twisted rawhide core or even a rawhide braided core, very heavy string. And to me, that is the reason, the main reason why I put buttons on my quirts. Like I said, some really excellent quirts, like for example, the ones that John Jacko made or the one that Jay Atcock makes. They are excellent quirts, and all they have is this button to cover up where they splice it together or where the braid comes together, and a simple handle on it. Excellent quirts. But for me, the way I make them, the more buttons I put on the body with a rawhide core, the way I twist and braid my cores, gives it a little more rigidity. You know, it's a little more stiff, more rigid. And so just because there are no buttons on there, maybe they found another way to make a core, and it works excellent. So that being said, another thing I think is real important is that the popper is fixed. And reason being, again, if I want to touch my horse or a cow or my leg there, I want that quirt or that popper to go exactly there where I want it to be. And there are several different ways. Like on this one, it's basically a string going through the braid here on either side. I got two little, with just a sewing awl, two little holes in there. I go outside, go back in, and then go into the braid of this little loop here again. That's one. Another one is like what Billy Alvin uses a lot, where he fixes his popper on his score and then braids everything around it. Or like I'm doing nowadays, it's more like with a nail going through the loop here, through the braid, and then I press the leather on it and it stays right there. It's a little trick that Jay Atcock shared a little while ago, and I like it a lot. There are several ways. Now, this is the oldest quirt that I found in the house, and there's another couple of older ones that are still in the barn. As you can see, this loop here is fairly thin because this body is a 12 plate, so this is a 6. I started here in the center of my strings and braided all the way down. And it gets kind of floppy. Same here. Again, another thing is on these ones, this is before I started to lock down my popper, so this moves. The main reason I still have them in the house is because I can go back, you know, when I got a button that just doesn't want to work, I'll look at some of that old stuff and I go like, yeah, I made a lot of progress over the last 20 years or something. There's also another way, like this, where you just braid a button, get your popper over it, braid a button, just fold it over, and have it like this. I've made several of those in the past, and when we used them in the barn, something came up, and that is that this leather here, when it starts to turn, which it can because, you know, it's all on a round swivel, so to say, what it does is it kind of starts eating the rawhide, especially in a climate like Belgium where during the winter it can be very humid, and all of a sudden, bam, your popper pops off. It didn't happen in a year. It didn't even happen in 5 years, but it happened. So another thing, what I'm doing now is like, for example, here. This is also a 12 plate body. Again, I like to use heavy, beefy strings. Reason being, I want this feel that I have here, just like in my Bozals, it's not only coming from the core, it's also coming from the body of the strings. But instead of starting in the middle with 6 strings, I introduced 2 short strings. So instead of this being a 6 flat, like this is, let me see if I can get it. I did an 8 flat, and then I dropped the 4 ends, brought it together. Everything's buried under this button here. And all of a sudden, I got a lot better feel. Like on this one, for example, this is a 16 flat body. It's a little fatter than this one is, and the string is about the same thickness and the same width. What I did here, instead of just taking the 8, start braiding in the middle, bring it together, and then braid the rest of the body, I did the same. I used 4 short ends, and I started braiding here, let's say. So I braided 12, came around here, dropped 4, and then went on with 16. So that's basically what I think is important, or what I like in a quirt, and how I like a quirt to function. For the rest, you know, on your wrist loops, whether it's leather or rawhide or braided rawhide, you know, it doesn't make a lot of difference for me. The way your wrist loop is attached is not important. It's what you have here in this scenario is I just took a piece of rawhide, folded it, and then formed it, and it went all the way down here, and I got a saddle ring is what it's called, which is supposedly easier to hang your quirt on your saddle, which for me, I just hang it over my saddle horn, so it's right there for me to pick up. I think that's pretty much it. If I think of something else, I'll just revisit it in another video. Thank you for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and more things to come. Thank you very much.